was fun. I love this sport. I gave it my all. It's fucking crazy. I had a blast, and thank you to all the fans and everyone.
All right, folks, it's over. Anthony Joshua knocks out Jake Paul in the 6th round of their fight on Netflix.
Style that would align with a ring that size, a negative style, as we mentioned. It really comes down to the fan interest. Jake Paul is on a 2-fight stretch coming into this one, which really put his reputation on the line.
Boxing professionals react to Jake Paul's potential retirement following his shocking knockout loss to Anthony Joshua. Jake has hinted that once he achieves all of his goals in boxing, he plans to step away from the sport and pursue a career in the NFL. The statement signals a possible major shift in his athletic journey and has sparked widespread debate across the boxing world.
NFL after this, like legitimately, just to play like safety and just deck people. No, I swear to God, I'm about to bring hella ratings to whatever team I'm on.
Where would you want to go if you can go to any team?
Shit, the Browns.
So
I can run a 4.34.
He's the fastest man on the planet.
I got hands. I have the size, the power. I can knock people out with one punch. So why can't I play free safety?
Do you think you coming into the NFL would be the equivalent of like when an NFL player says, I'm going to try to box now?
No, because I played football my whole life. At the end of the day, it's coverage, knowing your plays, and then just being fast and willing.
The boxing world reacts strongly after the fight as ex-user IB delivers an explosive take on Jake Paul's future, posting, "Jake Paul knocked out. His career is over. This bum is done." Duke McKenzie also comments on the matchup, pointing out how undersized Jake Paul was against Anthony Joshua. He explains that even when Jake tried to land punches, he couldn't properly reach AJ, highlighting the clear mismatch. McKenzie strongly suggests Jake should stop this nonsense now, warning that continuing in fights like this could be dangerous and damaging to his boxing reputation.
Paul tried to throw a shot, he would lunge in, jump in, and because he was so short, he'd miss. And then he ended up stumbling over his feet and falling over. Sometimes in that fight, it reminded me of, have you seen that Kung Fu film called The Drunken Master? Except for he wasn't a master. As a Kung Fu guy walks around and normally kicks people's ass, but he looks drunk all the time. That's what that fight reminded me of. It was such a poor showing from Jake Paul. You know, I mean, it's a well-documented fact. There was a lot of money on the line. And I'm sure you, Max, as I would, and anybody else in the street would fight Anthony Joshua for 75 million. You just would. And the same thing would happen. And even after the fight, now the fight's over, you're 75 million.
Another ex-user, Chelsea, reacts passionately to Jake Paul's shocking loss, sharing relief by posting, "I hardly come here anymore, but I'm so glad Jake Paul lost. Maybe now he'll shut up." Former UFC champion Michael Bisping also reacts to Jake's devastating defeat at the hands of Anthony Joshua, calling it a masterclass. He explains how badly Jake was injured, noting that AJ's powerful uppercuts and combinations left Paul with no room to maneuver. Despite Jake's attempts to escape by running, he couldn't avoid the punishment. Bisping emphasizes the severity of the damage to Jake's face and condition, making it clear that the fight exposed his limitations against top-tier opponents.
In my humble opinion, because I'm a big Anthony Joshua fan. Of course, I've been a supporter for the longest time. A rather lackluster, unmotivated Anthony Joshua that didn't look like he was being particularly nasty, right? Yeah, a lot of the time he was out of range, and okay, it is hard to land a shot on someone that's backing up and moving away the whole time. And there was a lot of times where he had him in the corner and he could have thrown a shot. And sometimes he was telegraphing his shots. And anytime he did go in to throw a punch, as I said before, Jake Paul would shoot in and turn it into a wrestling match. And even when he wasn't shooting in, he was clinching a lot. This is boxing. It's not MMA, as we know. The referee should have done a much better job of getting in there and separating them much, much faster. As I say, it was the 6th round. I think it was the 4th round he got dropped twice. In the 5th round, he got through it. In the 6th round, caught him with the jab, then a glancing right hook. He goes down, and that was that. That was all she wrote, right? I did a live. There was about 9,000 people watching at one point. Nobody was particularly enjoying the matchup. Listen, okay? I respect both men. I respect anyone really that steps into the ring, okay? And certainly going up against Anthony Joshua, that was a tall task, okay? You know, metaphorically and figuratively, right? It was a tall task. It was a big job. It was a tough opponent. It was a mismatch, and it was, right? Jake Paul never worried Anthony Joshua once. He never rung his bell. He never caused any damage. He never had him worried. He never did anything. It wasn't a fight. It was a display of how long can Jake Paul last? Can he run away long enough to...
Ex-user Cabral's Finest reacts to Jake Paul's shocking injury, reporting the seriousness of the situation by posting, Jake Paul has gone to the hospital with a suspected broken jaw. Bro was forced into early retirement. Sean Jones shares his reaction to the intense fight, highlighting that at least the bout wasn't rigged or scripted. He notes that despite Jake suffering a broken jaw, AJ didn't even use his full power, suggesting the knockout could have been even more devastating. Jones emphasizes the severity of the injury while crediting the fight's authenticity, stating it revealed the harsh reality of stepping up against a world-class boxer like Joshua.
For all those people who were fully convinced that this fight was 100% rigged, like people said that this is a clown show, and they said, this is rigged, this is scripted. Okay, so now Joshua's won. What are you going to say to that? So was it scripted that Joshua was going to win? You see this whole narrative about, oh, the fight's rigged, the fight's scripted. That's illegal to do, and Joshua is not going to tarnish his legacy by doing something like that. Would Jake Paul do something like that? Maybe so, yeah, but not someone like Joshua. Come on. Now, to be fair, 80% of that fight was looking a little bit dodgy. It was looking like Joshua wasn't throwing as much as he usually would. Jake Paul was landing on Joshua. He landed a really strong jab that knocked Joshua's head back. He landed a couple of decent overhand rights. In fact, Jake was kind of the first one who landed the biggest shots of the fight. But this is the thing, anyone who fights, even on like a low-level basis, or who just does some sparring, will understand that when you fight someone who has got nowhere near the skill level as you, sometimes it can be a little bit harder because they're awkward. They're doing stuff that you don't really expect. You know, sometimes when you fight beginners, it's a bloody nightmare. Just like, you know, awkward movements. You're like, what are they throwing? You don't expect certain shots to come that do come. And then you fight someone who's a little bit more traditionally sound with the fundamentals, and it's almost a little bit easier. And I think that's what we've seen here in this fight. AJ has had an easier time with some fighters who've got like 40 professional fights with 20 KOs on the record than he did with Jake Paul. Why is that? Oh, because it's scripted. It's scripted. No, it's not scripted. It's just because Jake Paul is awkward and he's a beginner in relation to Joshua. So Joshua just took some time to figure them out. You could see Joshua was getting a little bit frustrated in that 4th and 5th round, but then he started.
User Mir7 Juan fires a sharp warning at Jake Paul after his defeat, urging him to walk away by posting, "Do everyone a favor and don't return." Real boxing fans appear to have had enough. Analyst Liam Goff warns that Jake Paul is in serious trouble following his brutal loss to Anthony Joshua. According to Goff, the paths forward for Jake's boxing career are effectively closed for now due to severe injuries that require significant recovery time. With a broken jaw and additional setbacks, Jake must step back and focus entirely on healing. Goff stresses that this recovery period is critical for Jake's long-term health and future in professional sports.
When he had that face-off with Tank Davis, he was looking at a guy who was, 5-6 inches shorter than him and probably 60-70 pounds lighter, right? So he was probably looking at that thinking, yeah, you're a legit boxer. Yeah, you hit very hard, but look how much bigger I am to you. Contrast that to him looking up at Anthony Joshua and realizing, oh my God, look at the size of you in comparison to me. That's a bit different. And I think with Jake Paul, it really dawned on him what's going on. But Jake Paul has to keep face. He has to stay essentially in that persona that, you know, I am the man, I'm going to win this, trying to sell a dream to a casual, a bit like what Eddie Hearn does, trying to sell the casual audience that this is going to be a real fight, quote unquote. It was a real fight. It's not scripted, but you know what I mean, that he's really in this fight. That's what he was trying to do. And he did that well up until fight night. Boy, did he fail miserably on fight night. Again, I give him credit. He doesn't need to box. He can choose an easier profession, as I say. But to go in and to run around the ring like that, that was something else entirely. I mean, he was doing his best Roadrunner impression in there. He was running around that ring from the minute that bell went. That was all he was trying to do. And listen, AJ's performance, I can critique it from a defensive point of view, that he got hit with some silly shots that he probably shouldn't have been hit with. He was trying to cut the ring off in a ring as big as that. It's not easy. All right. And furthermore, if you're in there with an opponent who purely just wants to survive, he's no interest in winning the fight. He just wants to go to rounds. People, you could be one of the most you could be a prime Mike Tyson, Bone Crusher Smith, prime example. People never talk about that fight with Mike Tyson. because they say, oh yeah, Prime might
After suffering injuries in his recent fight, Jake Paul updates fans on X about his condition, expressing gratitude toward his medical team while acknowledging the challenges ahead. He writes, "Just got out of surgery. Everything went smoothly. Thanks for all the love. Lots of pain and stiffness. Got to eat liquids for 7 days. Shout out to the amazing team at Miami University Hospital. Everyone was so gracious and caring." Wade also comments on the fight, stating that Jake may have felt he had already accomplished everything and didn't need to defend multiple belts, allowing him to focus on potential money fights. Wade speculates about future matchups, including Canelo or a slower-paced year, while mentioning a massive fight with Tyson Fury if Jake fully commits. However, he cautions that Jake was nowhere near AJ's level in skill, size, power, speed, or endurance, while still respecting him for stepping into the ring. Overall, Wade calls the event a fantastic spectacle for boxing fans.